So you became a refugee from Bosnia during the Civil War. What was the hardest part of leaving your home, or can you describe kind of the process of making that decision and then leaving, what that was like for you?
Yeah. I left my hometown when the war in Bosnia broke up, and honestly, at that time, no one really knew how long it's going to last. We all thought that at that moment that will be some kind of temporary thing, and we'll all be able to come back to our homes, you know. But my family, my mom and dad, vanished from home. Many families displaced, and they really never returned. You know, never able to return to their homes, apartments. And yeah, go ahead.
Did you and you had family in the United States already, so you knew that's where you were going to go, right?
Yes. My uncle and aunt came a year before me. You know, they came as a refugee 1993, and somehow they were able to contact me and other family members. Hey, we are here in the United States. Do you want to come? We can send you paperwork. And that's exactly how I came. Went through the process, followed everything, and came to Minneapolis first.
And did you, what did you know about the United States before you came here? And you, did you speak any English at all before you showed up?
I had 3 or 4 years high school English in high school, and that helped me a lot. Also, about the United States, we definitely learned in the school, you know, through world history, pretty much like kids here right now, you know, about different countries. U.S. also, we had to learn every single state, major cities. As a kids, we faithfully follow everything from the movies to music. We had, I should say, you know, our aspiration to visit New York or Los Angeles one day, but not under circumstances that happened.
Yeah. What were you able to take anything with you, and how long? It doesn't, compared to Naima's story, which we'll talk about in a minute, your leaving doesn't seem like it was as rushed as hers. Did you have do you have any idea how much time you had between when you knew you were going to leave and then when you left?
War was sensed in the air. You know, at the time when was happening, you know, like and many people were kind of leaving even before it started. You know, like in terms of rush, yeah, and refugees from all different parts of the world, everybody's story is different. And you know, like back to your question, did I have a time to take my stuff? Basic, you know, basic necessities, clothes, but you know, like as I said, everything was under pretenses that I might be able to come back.
Yeah.
You know, this won't last forever. You know, when in reality it did last forever. You know, like 4 or 5 years. It's lots of time. In the meantime, you know, like all your childhood pictures, memories, everything is destroyed. You know, so when I came to United States,
came to your parents' apartment and said,
exactly,
get out.
Exactly. So that's how it, you know, happened. And as I said, you know, I came here with 1 suitcase of just basic necessities.
Do you and this wasn't a question, but I was just thinking about it as we were talking. What do you know what became of your neighborhood after you left at all? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, basically that neighborhood, you know, like was ethnically cleansed of people, you know, like in you know, home apartments, you know, like people were just forced to leave, and never came back. And particularly in my hometown, it's still quite divided, you know, and sadly, you know, things are moving really slow, even now.
What I thought this was a really good question, and I didn't ask you this last time. When did you know, or do you know when you finally felt safe for the first time? Can you think of when, I mean, as soon as you landed in the United States, did you know, like, I'm safe, or did it take a while for you to really kind of feel like you were settled?
I should say you feel settled much later. I did feel safe right away.
Yeah.
I was miles and miles, oceans away, and that sense of, you know, like the time in a place where there's no war, you know, like I did feel safe right away.
But with that said, that she felt safe, her mom and dad were still there. And I can remember Amra telling me that she could be talking to her mom on the phone and hear bullets in the background. So even though she was safe here, I don't think she ever felt comfortable because she knew her family was not safe.
Yeah. That's where that settling kind of part, you know, comes, you know, like much later when things are more in order. Other way.
How did you, and you talked about this last time, how do you think the experiences, what was the experience like for Bosnian refugees in the 90s, kind of compared to the experiences of refugees today? And we're kind of talk about Naima a little bit too.
Sure. Well, I'd say at the time when I came, when my uncle came, beginning 90s, 1993, 1994, there was overwhelmingly support on every single corner. You know, there was welcoming sentiment, help from strangers, you know, any matter that you can think of, finding a job, directing you to do here and there, you know, like people were eager to help. Unfortunately, I have to say, you know, and the Bosnian War story, it was something that was quite, you know, like interesting to Americans, to what just happened in the middle of the Europe, you know. So everybody were interested in the story. Unfortunately, I have to say the sentiment is different towards coming refugees right now. Everything that we are reading on TV and social media, you know, refugees are more seen as a threat. They're kids, newly born Americans, kids of refugees who are going to be just born here, are more looked as a possible threat than anything else. Yeah. And that's very sad.
Yeah. What I'm gonna ask you some questions. Can you tell us a little bit about Naima and how you got involved in her story? When I went through your guys' questions, a lot of you asked about my aunt working for the refugee organizations, and to kind of make it clear, she just volunteers. She's not employed. She doesn't get paid to do any of this. So can you tell me how, because you spend a lot of time doing this, can you tell me what motivated you and how you got involved with Naima?
Okay, how I found out about Naima, there was just a news report, because this is last February, we have a new president. He has changed the rules, you know, as far as letting immigrants or refugees come to the United States, especially from Middle East, African countries where they're predominantly Muslim. And so, because my son, which is Casey's cousin, is in the military and was with the special forces in Syria last year, the Syrian people and the Kurdish people helped him so much, and he probably wouldn't be alive had he not gotten their help in their country. That when I saw this news story, because I was so grateful that my son came home alive, because someone in another country had helped him, that we decided, do you want me to explain about the plane tickets?
Yeah.
Okay, there is, when refugees come to the United States, I think people in the United States have the perception or idea that those plane tickets are free, because I've heard people say they get to come here free. They don't get to come here free. Their plane tickets are paid for, but after they've been in the United States 6 months, they have to start paying those plane tickets back.
And these are international flights, so they're not.
These are international flights, and so these aren't $100 tickets, you know, to fly from Kansas City to Portland. These are expensive tickets, and these are people who don't have jobs when they come, and it's always hanging over their heads that they're going to start getting to pay this back. So when I saw her news story, and she is a single mother coming from a completely different culture than we are, that my husband and my 2 sons and I paid for their plane tickets. I was doing that probably more for me because I was so grateful my son came home. But when I took to pay at the immigration center where the agency she came through, I didn't realize that the agency had her there, which she thought maybe she had done something wrong. But so when we were in, they told her that I paid for her plane tickets. And so we just met. I mean, she was beyond words how grateful she was. I mean, we just developed a friendship there. So then I went through some classes because I wanted to help her, but I didn't know where to start. So, and what I do now and what I did then is help her, you know, the bus system, where she can get, you know, when there's certain food that she wanted, but she didn't know where to get it. So things that we take for granted here, I help her read her mail. Because she works 6 days a week and she's at a job that she can't get on her cell phone in all places, that I will make phone calls for her, take her and her son to the doctor. They will offer interpreters, but mostly those are over the phone, and she said it is so hard to understand. And even though I don't speak Somalian, she does understand some English, and through hand signals, you can get a lot done. Yeah. And seeing somebody's face, you know whether they understand something or not. So now she calls me mom, and I treat her just like one of my kids as far as when I think she needs to be focusing on something else, I'll tell her, Naima, this is coming from your mom, you got to do it this way. And she'll be like my kids, she'll either do it or she'll say yes and not do it. So.
What you were talking about, can you tell me, prior to coming to the U.S., what had happened to her throughout her life to kind of get her to that point?
She lived in Somalia. They lived in she'll say village, but it's a lot of people in a small area. But till she was probably 10 or 12, they were nomadic, which they had herds of goats. They would put all their belongings on camels and just travel. They then moved to this village, and because of the Civil War, rebels came, took her father, her twin brother, and her older brother, and said they would be back for the rest of them the next day. She has no idea whatever happened to her brothers or her dad. And the next day, she and her 10 other brothers and sisters and her mom fled. And literally they scattered, and Naima has no idea where any of her family members are. Her goal is to become a U.S. citizen, which will take her 5 years. Then she can go back to Somalia And that's her goal, is to go back and see
If she can find everybody.
if she can find them.
So she, when she fled, she couldn't come straight to the United States. So first she went to Uganda and was in a refugee camp.
Yes. She
Um,
was in a refugee camp, and she stayed in there for years, but those are incredibly overcrowded. And she wanted to work, so she actually went to a city outside of the refugee camp, which was Kampala. And there's a big bulletin board, the way she explained it to me, a bulletin board that tells if once you're in the refugee camp, you know, you have a number and they start the process of sending you to, maybe you don't know what country or what city, but they're going to try and resettle you somewhere. So she went to work in Kampala, and then she had a cell phone, and they would call her if she needed to come do paperwork and that kind of thing. And she was actually living in Kampala when they said, we have the okay in your paperwork for you to go to the United States. She had no idea where she was coming in the United States, but
did she request the United States, or did they just tell her this is where we have
they
to go?
tell, she did not get it.
Wow.
No.
And so she has a son that was born in the refugee camp.
Yes.
And tell me a little bit about Muhammad. How long, and I was shocked when you said this last hour. So he is born in a refugee camp, that's all he knows growing up. And then he comes to the U.S., and what's the time span between when he arrived and when he started at a public school?
Probably less than a week.
Okay.
So he comes to the flies on an airplane for the very first time, and we're not talking 3-4 hour flight, we're talking 36 hours of flying, come to the United States, the dead of winter,
In the mountains, by the way. So
in the mountains. We're having the worst winter we've ever had in our history, and we're going to, because he's 8 years old, they put him in 3rd grade. And he maybe got a little bit of schooling in the refugee camp, but it was in Somali, the language. And you got to remember, they went from Somalia to Uganda, and Swahili is more of a central language. So he's 8 years old, he's only spoken Somali. Now we better learn how to speak Swahili, which I might have that incorrect as far as the actual language. He has learned that language, and now he's going to be in the United States, and we expect him to be at grade level in 3rd grade for a kid who's never been in school.
So you were talking about the paperwork for Naima. Can you explain when Muhammad gets report cards and stuff, you kind of translate that for what is Naima? I mean, because she's not educated herself, right?
No, and she will hand me, I will go through his backpack, because she's so focused on making sure that they have a place to live and food to eat, that what he does in school isn't always #1 priority. Yeah. They're trying to make sure they have a roof over their head. Yeah. So I will look at his report card and explain that, and then, you know, they'll give him, like at the end of last year when he left school, at the end of 3rd grade, they had an envelope, and in it said, what are your goals when you grow up? And Naima's looking at that, and she's like, why are they doing this? What do they mean? He's 8 years old. What are his goals when he's older? So to try and explain that to her,
yeah,
in a language that's completely foreign.
Yeah. What do you think is, and a lot of the stuff you're telling me about Naima,
You know, I've asked her about it, and I've asked if she, because in the apartment complex she lives in, there are refugees from all over the world. And there are other Somalians that live there, and I have asked her, you know, do you know what their experience? She said, you know, I don't want to ask people because it's very hard for them. It makes people sad, and they are so wanting to make this a better life for them and their families that it's like, let's just look ahead. That I don't think, for me personally, I don't think I could go on if I always was thinking about what happened to my family. And I think that's her main focus. She always tells me if I stay really busy, then I don't think about how much I miss with her.
Yeah.
Why I believe.
Amra, when you went to Minnesota, was there, other than your family, was there a significant Bosnian population? I mean, did you kind of have a little community, or was there not many?
Yes. I believe maybe first year when my uncle came, 1993, was pretty much the earliest Bosnian refugees were coming. You know, there were not that many, but then, you know, like everybody trying to bring their closest family members, the community grew. You know, so by the time I came in 94, you know, there was a significant number, you know, of Bosnian community. And then, honestly, whatever I went further, you know, like I ended up later in California. From California, I moved from Idaho. Wherever I went, I honestly, you know, like always somehow found, like, hey, here is the Bosnian community here and there. You know, seems like, you know, like people just kind of, you know, stick together or find each other somehow, always, you know, like it's amazing. So there are communities of refugees, amazingly, on every single corner.
Yeah. Let's see, what else was I going to ask? Both of you, how has this, and your experiences are different, but how has your experience influenced your view of the world, and maybe just people in it?
You want to go?
I think we're very small. The world is getting smaller and smaller. And I think that your cousin is from China. Maybe I've been aware of, I don't know how it feels to be the only person in a room that looks like me.
Yeah.
But I've seen what your cousin, my daughter, has experienced. I think that has made me want to be there and to make people feel accepted.
Yeah. Good.
That we're so much more alike than different, and that's worldwide. People want their family to be safe, have a place to live, and to just be happy. And that, I think that's, if anything, all the refugees I have met, people travel, even going to other countries, we're so much more alike than we're different. And I think that's where we've gotten off track there.
Yeah. What, and again, kind of for both of you, what do you think is the most frustrating thing?
Sorry.
Oh no, that's it. What was the most frustrating part of the refugee process, do you think? I mean, for the refugees going through it, and then Sue, maybe as kind of an observer, what's the process, I think, seems very hard. You were talking about things that she needs to have done, that Naima needs to have done, that me as an adult growing up in the United States and speaking English, I'm not good about, like knowing all the tax forms and medical documents and banking statements and like keeping track of all those things. I
I think it's both.
I think if you're asking frustration on the refugee part, it's definitely, you know, before they even know where they're going to go. You know, some refugees in some parts of the world can be in refugee camps, whatever, you know, 5, 10 years. Some, you know, a situation of Muhammad, he was born there. That's all he knew for his first 8 years. You know, unfortunately, you know, people and kids there stay for a very long period of time. And that period of uncertainty, you know, that period of not normalcy in their life that they don't have, it's very frustrating.
Yeah, and I can imagine that it's hard to do a lot of things when you just don't have that foundation of like knowing what comes next, I guess.
Exactly.
Well, and it's like we've talked about, you only know what you know. If you didn't know that flipping the switch you get lights, there are just so many things that because we have grown up here, and you've learned from the time you were born. It's just to try and teach someone things that we take for granted is very frustrating. And I think people have the idea that refugees just come here and there's not a lot of paperwork. It's years and years of paperwork. And even when they're here, there are interviews, they have to go get immunizations, they have to go to the refugee center. There are so many things that I think people just, because people don't talk.
Trying to hold down a job and, you know, just.
Exactly. Right.
And then the last thing that I was we had talked about that I didn't mention with the last one. Naima's husband, can you tell, Naima, and I mean, well, I feel like we can talk about it, but Naima isn't even really aware. What did you say that you found out about her husband?
Naima is aware of this. Her husband is, as of last week, she still had not told him. Our president brought down an executive order, I think it was an executive order, about refugees coming in or asylum seekers. And her husband, in the process of having interviews, doing the paperwork to come to the United States as a refugee, Naima, I had to tell her, and she has not told him, because hopefully things will change, but his visa, even though he was in the process, has been denied, and it is denied indefinitely, which means he may never ever get to come to the United States. So now it is so important to her. We are going through the green card process, which you have to have a green card. You have to do all this paperwork. You can get that a year after you've been in the United States. And with that green card, that's the first step in becoming a U.S. citizen, which that takes 5 years. But with that green card, if she gets travel documents, she may be able to go over and see him. But right now, he will never be able to come to the United States unless things change.
And that was one of the questions that someone had asked, is if they had ever gone back. And have you ever gone back to Bosnia, or do you have any, or even that general part of the world, or have you had any interest in ever doing that, or not at all?
Well, yes, I went to Bosnia, quite frankly, several times. Even my kids, I believe, we all went as a family. At least 3 times my kids went there and visited. War in Bosnia stopped 20 years ago. You know, things are getting better. Let's say there is no war right now, but, you know, things are, you know, still not the way how most people would like to be. You know, but it is safe to travel. We still try to, you know, kind of go every 2 or 3 years, depends, you know, on you know, availability and money, of course, tickets are expensive. But, you know, I still have a dear family and relatives, and, you know, some of my, you know, high school friends that I finally reunited, you know, are still, you know, dear to my heart that I want to see and you know, see from time to time. And I think it's a good for my kids who are born here to be globally aware. This is where your parents come from, and this is like what you guys have here, what you don't have over there. Things would be much more different for you, opportunities and everything else. So, yeah.
Well, I think we're about good on time, so I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. But thank you so much. I will turn this finger around. So can you guys face me? Say thanks. Bye.